What's happening, everybody? JayShockblast here, and we are ready to finally do the thing. I know you can read the title. I know you know what we're about to do. That's right, folks. The Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 review is finally here. Way later than I wanted it to be, but sometimes days turns into weeks, weeks turn into months, and we didn't want to make it turn into a year. So here we are, and I think it's kind of appropriate to do it at this point because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is now available for your viewing pleasure on Netflix. It's been out on Blu-ray for a little bit, and of course it was in theaters a while ago. I saw it 3 times in theaters, I think. Maybe even 4. And I also I own it on Blu-ray, and I'm gonna watch it on Netflix again after we're done with this review. But let me just tell you guys, this movie is fantastic, and I know my buddy Archer White has been bothering me for a long time to do this review. Now you've got nothing to complain about because here we are. Let's do it, and let's rewind back a little bit. Way back to when Marvel announced they were making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Now, I was stoked. Most of the regular, movie-going fans that don't necessarily follow the comic books that closely were kind of like Karath the Pursuer in the first movie. They were kind of like, who? So, the Guardians of the Galaxy are a bit of a cult classic. They've been around a long time, many iterations. The current iteration, I think, is the best, and I think it translates so well into the movies. The first movie, absolutely loved it. I mean, it was probably, after I watched it, I would probably have called it my favorite Marvel movie at that point, and it's pretty close at this point. I think, there's a movie or two that have definitely surpassed it since then. One of those movies is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, hear me out. We're going to talk about this over the course of the review. I loved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I still have a few issues with some of the characters, and there is a little bit of a lull in the middle of the movie, but I feel like this movie is an amazing evolution from the first one because now people care. I told you about how most people didn't know who Guardians were when they announced the first movie because here we are in the second one and everybody's a fan. The Guardians are huge. They are one of Marvel's biggest franchises at this point, and I think seeing them interact with the Avengers is one of the most highly anticipated moments of Infinity War coming up. So, how did we get here? We got here through James Gunn. Now, for better or worse, James Gunn has really elevated the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. I say that for better or worse because I'm not always in love with some of the things he's done. So I'm going to start off with some of the negatives of the movie, and then I'm just going to wax poetic about it for the rest of the way. Obviously, there's spoilers, but honestly, at this point, if you haven't seen the movie, you really don't get to cry about spoilers. So we're going to go ahead and just talk about it. So James Gunn, I'm not, super hardcore about this, but, he's a little full of himself when it comes to, developing these movies because, he just kind of does what he wants. And I understand that's not uncommon for a lot of movies, but, I'm a longtime Guardians fan. As many of you know, Nova is probably my favorite comic book character, right there with Deadpool. And I watched Nova basically put together this version of Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics. Yes, again, there's been many versions of them over the years, but through Annihilation, he found Drax, and then he met up with and maybe had relations with Gamora. And then, they meet up with Rocket and Groot, and then there's Star-Lord. He brings this cast of characters together, and there's other characters that are involved, like Phyla-Vell, who is Quasar at the time, or wearing the quantum bands anyway. Mantis is involved at different points. There's a lot of different characters that are in and out. There's Cammy, who's running around with them. So I loved them in the comics, well before we knew they were going to be a movie. And I understand for most people, what happens in the movies is all they know. And it's unfortunate, and I don't know if it would have been a more interesting story if instead of using Ego as Star-Lord's father, they went with his father from the comics, which was Jason Spartax. But I digress. When when they initially announced that, didn't like it. Like I was like, I don't like that at all. Ego has been around for a very long time, and it worked out in the end, but I don't know if that's the direction I would have wanted to go. I don't know how I feel about Star-Lord, having celestial blood, those types of things. But what's really important is, because the first movie was so successful, we were able to go into the second movie actually really caring about these characters. They mean something to us now because they had an entire movie to flesh it out, and now we're moving into the second movie, and the character development is huge. We learn a lot more about a lot of characters, a lot more about Rocket, a lot more about Star-Lord, more about Drax, more about Gamora. We learn a ton more about Yondu, and it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's just, I think the negatives for me are just what they get wrong about the characters. They portray I don't think they portray Gamora properly, but I understand that they're trying to soften it a little bit, for the younger audience. But Gamora is way deadlier. Like, they already kind of portray her as, a sick assassin, and those kinds of things. But she is literally called the deadliest woman in the galaxy in the comics. Like, that is how she was introduced the first time that she met, Richard Rider, okay? And she's also a little promiscuous. I mean, I can tell you that she has definitively had relations with Rider, and also Tony Stark, one of Stark's many conquests. And I'm pretty sure she's also kind of, had the whole Star-Lord thing as well. So, I mean, like, she gets around in the comics, and they have her as very innocent in the movie, and very, I don't want to say prude, but she's just, like, she could be so much more. And, we like to focus now on, building up female superheroes, especially after Wonder Woman. And Gamora is that character. Like, Gamora, like, should legitimately, like, be quite possibly the most ridiculously powerful character in the team. Peter Quill is a gambler. He's Han Solo, okay? He's Marvel's Han Solo. That's essentially what he is. And, he's not, he's the leader of the group, but he's not, like, the most talented of the group, Like, sometimes the captain of the football team isn't the best player. It's the guy that can just lead the team. And sometimes the best player is just has no leadership skills whatsoever. So, I mean, those are my negatives. There's just the way that they don't jive completely with the comic characters, and I kind of blame that on Gunn, but, I mean, at this point, I kind of trust the process. He has really done a really great job with the franchise, so I do trust him. I do trust that he cares about the characters. I don't love it when they change things. I mean, I've established that time and time again that, I really want them to be as faithful as they can be. But, sometimes I guess it doesn't translate onto the screen. So the second really only negative that I would really say is that there is, like, this little lull in the middle of the movie, and it's there for a reason. But, I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more action in those areas, but they have to establish the relationship between Peter and Ego. And, I mean, that was, like, my least favorite part of the movie. No matter how great Kurt Russell is, I mean, I just didn't really love that aspect of things. So, it was just, I think the only thing that separates it from being, kind of like what the first movie was, which was a little bit more active, because they didn't have to, like, flesh out that whole relationship. The things they got right is basically everything else. The movie is gorgeous. Like, everything is just so colorful. Everything is vibrant. The characters are, like, a million times better. There's tons of extra people. Some of the little cameos they do, both with David Hasselhoff and, even Howard the Duck. And then even involving the Ravager storyline, where you have, Yondu going through things. He goes through a mutiny. We kind of discover how his group of Ravagers were exiled, and we see Stallone as, Stakar, basically Starhawk. When you see, Ving Rhames as Charlie 27, and a bunch of the other characters that are Ravagers, but are really the original Guardians of the Galaxy in a lot of ways. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens from there with that storyline. But the beauty of the ending is really what put it over the top for me versus the original movie. The way the movie ends is incredible. And, there's just tons of action. The fight scene is great. And, Dance Off Bro is really cool and everything. But I think a lot of people weren't in love with that portrayal of Ronan. This case, the fight with Ego is one thing, but then having Aisha's crew kind of roll in, I don't remember what they were called at this point. Having them kind of come in kind of made it a little bit, more exciting. And then, Yondu's sacrifice, seeing him, make sure Peter lived, and, he may have been your father, but he ain't your daddy, It was a really... it was hard. It was rough, watching Yondu die that way. And I mean, Yondu is another example of a character I don't know that they 100% got right, but it all worked. Michael Rooker was great, and I liked it. I liked the portrayal. I liked how it all worked out. I just really just a great story, a powerful story. The effects were amazing. I'm pretty sure I gave the first Guardians movie a 9 out of 10. I don't remember. And I'm basically giving this a 9. It's effectively a 9.1 out of 10. I'm saying that it's better than the first one, but I'm saying it's barely better. They're both amazing movies in their own way. And I did really, really, really love this movie. And it is definitely a movie that, even though it's free on Netflix, if you have, it's a slice of your monthly Netflix premium if you have a Netflix account. I mean, this is the type of movie you buy and watch over and over and over again and have forever. I have the Steelbook. I loved this movie. It is definitely one of my top 5 favorite Marvel movies. I think Thor Ragnarok has jumped a little bit ahead of it. And I do slightly like it a little bit more than the first one. And, I will absolutely hear arguments that the first one is better, but everything about this was great, and I can't wait for the third movie. There's so many things that they've already teased. They've teased Adam Warlock. Aisha in the comics is responsible for Adam Warlock, or him, if you will. So, I mean, I can't wait to see where they go. I can't wait to see what happens with Infinity War, and I can't wait to play the DLC in LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2. So, I would say a very, very solid, I'm trying to start to get more conservative with my scores because I don't want to just give every movie a 10, I feel like once you establish a rating, and I think the part that really kills me is I think I rated Suicide Squad much higher than I should have. And I have to start comparing other movies against that, And I want to say this is a great 9 out of 10 movie. There are some slightly boring parts in the middle, but other than that, just awesome story all the way around. Mantis is a great addition, even though she's not exactly, again, the way that she is in the comics. None of them are. I mean, but we do see so much character development. You're going to fall in love with these characters all over again, even more so than you did before. Drax, you really kind of start to understand his pain through Mantis. And that is actually very accurate. He was born to destroy Thanos. That is his sole purpose in life. And, ultimately he almost kind of does. But, he loses his whole family, and he's just after them and after Thanos, and that pain in his heart, that drives him so much. I do think they kind of make him a little bit too much of a buffoon, but he's just so dangerous. And then Rocket Raccoon, what can you say? Definitely a lot of advancement for him. He had some time to really shine in this movie. And then, of course, Baby Groot. Baby Groot was fantastic. Very cute. It'll be interesting to see how he is portrayed next, if he grew a little bit more. We do obviously see adolescent Groot in the after credit scenes. And yeah, man, this movie is great. You need to see it if you haven't already. I can't imagine you haven't. It's like I said, if you can get past that early part or the middle part where it's it has that lull for story building purposes. It ends amazing. It starts amazing. It's fun. The soundtrack is amazing. It's bright, vibrant, colorful. I'm so glad I got to see it in a really nice theater with really nice screens. And definitely one of the best Marvel movies that they've ever made. Hopefully they keep on topping it. I would love to know what you guys think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And you're welcome. I finally got the review out for you. So shout out to Archer White for constantly hassling me and bugging me to get this review done. This is for you. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see ya.